You know, when you think about the things that really revolutionized human history, you think fire, the wheel, uh,
Electricity.
electricity, yeah, all
Well,
these sort of tangible things.
yeah.
But what about money, right? Like
Mhm.
money is this thing that's always there, this framework that impacts our lives every day, but it often feels like this,
Abstract.
yeah, almost magical
Right.
concept. Welcome to the deep dive, where we take your sources and pull out the really good stuff. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating video that you guys shared with us from the Simple Mind Space podcast called The Illusion of Money: Why Your Savings Are Doomed.
Catchy title.
Very catchy title.
Yeah.
Our mission today is to really understand money, especially what it means for how we think about saving.
Yeah, I think that's really important because we interact with money every single day, but I think we very rarely stop to think about its fundamental nature.
Absolutely.
And this video does a fantastic job of prompting that deeper thinking.
Yeah.
So let's start at the very beginning. Before cash, cards, crypto, we're talking barter system, baby.
Okay, so picture this. No coins jingling in your pocket, no swiping your phone at the checkout. You're a farmer and your trusty plow breaks.
No.
Catastrophe, right? So you load up a cart with your finest chickens and head to the blacksmith. Seems simple enough, right?
Right.
One shiny new plow for a dozen plump chickens.
Yeah, seems pretty straightforward on the surface, but what happens if the blacksmith, he's just not really feeling chicken that week?
Uh,
Maybe he's got too many chickens, or maybe he needs wheat and you don't produce wheat on your farm.
right.
This is like the fundamental problem with the barter system, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's called the double coincidence of wants.
Mm,
Not only do you have to find somebody who has what you need,
right.
they also have to want what you have at that exact moment. It's
Yeah.
just this massive logistical hurdle. Imagine trying to build a complex economy like that.
Yeah, it sounds incredibly inefficient. And it's not just about finding the right trading partner. What about saving for the future? You know, if you're a fisherman with a big haul, your wealth is literally going to rot unless you can trade it all right away. You can't exactly put fish away for a rainy day.
Right, exactly. Perishable goods, they just don't work as reliable sources of value.
Makes sense.
So you've got these two big problems, right? The instability of your goods and this difficulty in finding a coincidence of wants.
Yeah.
And that really created a pressure for a new system, something more durable and more universally accepted.
Mm.
That's where currency starts to come in.
So we're talking about moving from bartering chickens for plows and fish for, well, anything that doesn't rot, to something else. The video mentions these early forms of currency like salt, weapons, rare shells. What made those things valuable?
So the key here is scarcity
Okay.
and some degree of inherent usefulness or perceived value. So salt, for example, super important for preserving food,
Right.
which made it highly desirable. Weapons obviously had a clear use. And rare shells, well, they were difficult to obtain, so they had a certain prestige about them.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, and because they had this limited supply, they held their value relatively well. They could be used as a medium of exchange a lot more easily than, say, a perishable good.
Right.
So it was a big step forward.
Okay, so then a few thousand years later, around 770 DC, the Chinese invent metal coins. That sounds like a huge leap forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Total game changer.
What made them so revolutionary?
Well, these early coins, they were often made of bronze, and sometimes they were stamped with shapes of tools, which is really interesting.
Hmm.
But for one, they were circular, made them easy to handle and transport and count. But probably more importantly, they used relatively scarce metal, like bronze. So this gave them intrinsic value, right?
Yeah.
The metal itself was worth something. So for the first time, money wasn't just representing value, it had tangible value.
Okay. So we've got convenient, valuable metal coins. Everything's smooth sailing in the financial world from now on, right?
Huh.
Eh,
What happened? Well, humans, right.
Of course.
Rulers, they noticed the power that came with controlling the currency.
Makes sense.
So they started manipulating it.
What? How?
Well, they do things like shave off tiny amounts of the precious metal
Oh, sneaky.
or mix it with cheaper alloys. So they were basically creating more money without actually increasing the real wealth.
So it's like, kind of like watering down your wine. You have more liquid, but it's not as good.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy.
So this tampering with the metal coins leads to the next big step in the evolution of money.
Yeah.
Fiat currency.
Right.
Now, the video points out that fiat is Latin for let it be done.
Yeah.
So what does that mean in the context of, our wallets today?
Well, it's really a fundamental shift in how we define money.
Oh, okay.
So fiat currency, it gets its value not from some inherent material worth like the gold or silver in those old coins, but just from the decree, the let it be done of the government that issues it. Its value is based on trust and this collective agreement that it will be accepted as a medium of exchange. Like, think about the paper money in your wallet.
Yeah.
It's just paper. It has no inherent value, but we all agree that it's worth something. That's what makes the global economy work.
It's fascinating, right? Its value is basically a social construct. It only works because we all believe it does.
It really is. It's a powerful concept.
So governments can just declare something valuable and poof, it is.
Yeah, essentially.
Sounds powerful and maybe a little unsettling.
Yeah, it definitely has its downsides. But the big advantage of fiat currency is its flexibility. Governments and central banks can actually control the money supply. In theory, they can manage the economy,
Okay.
simulate growth during recessions, fund public services, even finance wars, like the video mentions.
Right, but the video also talks about inflation. Can you explain how printing more money leads to, say, higher grocery prices?
Sure. Imagine a marketplace, right? And there's only a certain number of apples for sale.
Mm.
And suddenly, everyone in the market has twice as much money.
Oh.
Everyone wants to buy apples, but the number of apples hasn't changed. What happens? The sellers, they realize they can charge more because everyone's got more money to spend.
Yeah.
That's basically inflation.
Okay.
When the amount of money in circulation is growing faster than the supply of goods and services, the value of each unit of money goes down,
Meaning?
meaning you need more money to buy the same stuff.
So the stuff in your wallet is worth less.
Right, your purchasing power goes down.
And the video ties this to what's been happening since 2020 with the pandemic and the huge stimulus packages. Trillions of new dollars entered the system.
Exactly. And that was intended to, provide a safety net during a really difficult time.
Of course.
But as the video highlights, putting so much new money into the economy all at once, that's going to have consequences.
So I'm seeing it now?
Exactly. We see it in rising prices. We see shortages in certain sectors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all because this increased money supply is competing for the same amount of goods and labor.
Which brings us to the role of the Federal Reserve, the central bank in the U.S.
Right.
The video mentions bond buybacks and manipulating interest rates.
Yeah.
How do those levers actually work?
So think of the Fed as having tools that add or remove money from the economy.
Okay.
When they buy government bonds, they're basically giving cash to banks and other institutions in exchange for those bonds. So that injects money into the system. Lowering interest rates makes it cheaper to borrow money, which encourages spending and investment. That also increases the flow of money. The goal is usually to stimulate the economy.
But the video warns about the hidden cost of all this new money, that it devalues savings and erodes our purchasing power.
Yeah, it's a huge downside that I think a lot of people don't fully grasp.
I agree.
When you create new money, it doesn't actually make the economy wealthier. It just dilutes the value of the money that's already out there. So if you've got savings and suddenly there's a bunch more money in circulation, your savings will buy you less stuff.
So basically,
The video calls it a silent transfer of wealth because it happens slowly and you don't always notice it right away.
right.
And it tends to benefit the people who get the new money first, like borrowers, governments, big financial institutions,
At the expense of...
at the expense of savers, yeah, and people on fixed incomes.
So the uncomfortable truth, as the video calls it, is that just saving cash, especially with inflation, isn't really a great way to build wealth. You're swimming against the current.
That's exactly right. You're trying to just maintain your purchasing power while prices are rising all around you.
Which leads to the main argument of the video,
Yeah.
that we need to change how we think about money and wealth.
Absolutely.
Money isn't necessarily this reliable store of value. It's more like a tool, something we use to exchange goods and services. It's a means to an end.
It facilitates transactions, but it isn't wealth itself.
Yeah.
I think that's an important distinction to make.
Exactly. And the video argues that if you actually want to grow your wealth, you need to move beyond just accumulating cash, especially when that cash is constantly losing value.
Yeah.
So what should we be doing?
The focus should be on acquiring assets that can outpace inflation, things that will hold their value or even increase in value over time.
And what are some examples of those kinds of assets?
Well, the video mentions a few. Investing in businesses, real estate, precious metals, even just developing valuable skills.
So what makes those different from just holding cash?
Well, they have the potential to either create more value over time, like a successful business that's growing, or they tend to hold their value relative to the declining purchasing power of that fiat currency.
I see. So, like precious metals often act as a hedge against inflation, and in demand skills can lead to higher wages, which helps you keep pace with rising prices.
Exactly. It's not about having a bigger number in your bank account. It's about having more purchasing power, having more financial security and freedom over the long run.
So, it's about looking beyond the raw numbers and really thinking about what that money represents. Your ability to actually buy things and live your life. It's about being financially resilient in a world where the value of money can change so much.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. The illusion is that more money equals more wealth. The reality is that true wealth is about what you can do with that money.
So, the big takeaway here is that understanding the nature of money, especially the limitations of fiat currency, is incredibly empowering. It shows us that just piling up cash isn't always the best strategy for building long-term wealth.
It really encourages a more proactive approach to managing your finances. It's about moving beyond just saving and thinking about how to make your money work for you.
So, as you're listening to this, I want you to really consider how your own definition of wealth might need to change in light of all this. What steps can you take to build genuine financial security, beyond just stashing cash in a savings account?
It's a big shift in perspective, but it's an important one.
Absolutely. And it could be essential for navigating the complex world of finance in the future.